We back talking about the MVP race, the CJ Sports Corner. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can click the link if you're on Facebook. We're gonna have some other good content, football. We do some album reviews. We're gonna do some movie reviews as well. So go ahead and subscribe if you can. If you want to get some good content as well, like us on Facebook. We're gonna get some good content going as well on there. But this has been one of the greatest MVP races that I can remember. After we had the back-to-back MVP, Steph Curry, we got a lot of, contenders this year. It's top-heavy with two guys, and then I think it's other four that need to be mentioned that people haven't been mentioning. Now, let's talk about my definition, or the real definition of MVP, which is most valuable player to their team's success, most valuable player in the league. And people misconstrue this with this being the overall best player who has the best stats, who does how many stats, how many points a game he's scoring. Because you can look at stats, and stats can be misleading, and people can say men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie, and sometimes they can be misconceiving. They can lie. You got a guy like, for example, Boogie Cousins, who go out there and average 30 and 15, but they're for show numbers. They flashy numbers, because those numbers are not equaling out to victories or wins. It's success. They're dummy numbers. Like Kevin Love was putting up in Minnesota all those years, getting 20 and 20, 30 and 20. And once he got on a contender with Cleveland, it wasn't all about him. He had to learn how to fit in and play with other superstars. He wasn't the vocal point. And, his numbers went down. And he had to learn to adjust. In Minnesota, it was just all him. And he was never going to win that way. And it was meaningless stats. And you have to look out for those meaningless stats. Now, you could start off with Westbrook. You got, the dude that run the herd, Colin Hurd, talking about Westbrook is, last in contested shots, last in, contested rebounds. He cherry picks. He does this. He does that. But at the end of the day, if, it was that easy, why? Other players didn't do that. Especially that was on lesser teams as Westbrook. Why they ain't go out there and get 10 rebounds and 10 assists and 20, 30 points a game? Why not? If it was so easy, because your team's not going to win a championship after a while. And talking about they padding their stats, well, you got to do that, because really, I think it's his most impressive stat. A lot of people look to the rebounds. I think it's assists, because he's getting assists with lack of consistent shooters. There's no great shooter over there. Anthony Morrow and McDermott are supposed to be two good shooters over there, and they ain't hitting for shit. Especially there's no good scorers over there, but Enes Kanter, and he's inconsistent. Then you go, I think Kawhi Leonard, if you want to be technical, I think he was the real MVP, by, definition, because he's valuable on the offensive end. He's just as valuable or more valuable on the defensive end. Most people look at the most valuable player and just look at all the offensive stats that they're putting up. But you got to flip it on the other side. Look at what they do on defense. How many turnovers they're doing. You can get all those assists and have high turnover ratio like Westbrook and like James Harden. And Kawhi Leonard doesn't have any of that. And he has some help with older Gasol and Parker and Ginobili, a lot of those older guys, but really he's the vocal point of that offense. He's really valuable. If he isn't there, that team ain't shit. I don't think that team makes the playoffs as construed now with all the injuries they suffered. Just my point of view on that. If you really want to go to definition about most valuable offensive defensive player, it definitely could be Kawhi Leonard. Then you can go to James Harden, who's a great player, and a lot of people say it's the system. And so similar to Kawhi, it's the system. He said he wasn't doing it, but James Harden was neck and neck when first Steph Curry's MVP, his first MVP, and the players voted him as the real MVP that year. And this year he averaging 12 assists, 30 points, about 8 rebounds. He's almost averaging a triple double. I think people are overlooking that as well. But and he's doing it with little or no help either. You got a lot of players that fit the system over there, to be honest, like Eric Gordon, who's thriving, but who has never thrived before in his career. I think Lou Williams is a good fit for him, what he does. Capella, he's being a good guy. He's developing into the big man that they need. Ryan Anderson, hit or miss, and not too much depth coming off that bench. Trevor Ariza, what he brings, he's the defensive attitude, and I think Patrick Beverley is one of the most underrated players out there. So he does have some talent, but as far as, being a LeBron or a Golden State type of team, absolutely not. He does as much as anybody. And I think without him on that roster, that team doesn't make the playoff. Very valuable. I don't care if people talking about the system. The system didn't work. Mike D'Antoni's system didn't work for the Lakers. So you can't just have any player and plug them in and make the system work. You got to have players for the system to work. Then you look at a guy like Isaiah Thomas, with the uprise in Boston, with that team being with a lot of young talent. I think that team is probably going to be the king of the East once they, get a lot of that talent developed. I mean, from 1 to 10, they got a lot of potential on that bench. And starting 5 with a lot of high caliber players. And I think Isaiah Thomas was a blessing from the basketball guys to Boston once again, and slipped through a lot of people's hand. And what he's meant to that team and what he's been doing in the fourth quarter and managing that team, I think he garnished some MVP praise as well. I don't think that team is where they are without Isaiah Thomas. And then you go to LeBron, most definitely. You know what he brings. He's almost averaging a triple double, 25 plus points, almost 9 rebounds, almost 9 assists. I think that goes overlooked. And he's very valuable to the team, but, without him on the team, I think that team makes the playoffs. Still in the weak East, probably 4th, 5th seed that still might win the Central, in my opinion. But doesn't take away from his value. But I guess we've been watching him doing it for so long. It's going to become routine. But he's definitely up there. You can make a case by the numbers why he should deserve the MVP as well. Because without him, I don't think Kyrie Irving learns how to be a winning player at 23 years old, not being 24. And I don't think Kevin Love gets that curve as well. And you got John Wall, a lot of people overlooking what he's doing. And Washington finally being healthy and driving that team with Bradley Beal developing. That's because of him and Scott Brooks. Without him, I don't think that team makes the playoffs this year. A lot of guys trying to find their way on that team. And I think Scott Brooks needs some attention as coach of the year. But if I had to say who's named my MVP, it's Russell Westbrook. What he did the last game, averaging a triple-double, never done before. I was a Harden guy at one point, but I got to go with Westbrook. But if I had to rank them, it'd be Westbrook, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, Isaiah Thomas, John Wall. I know John Wall and Isaiah Thomas might not get any votes, but that's just my opinion. But we gonna.